So just for some context. So there was a short that my editor posted of the Kaisa build, right? It's me saying I hate the AP Kaisa. And then, for example, this guy said, I love Jack, the guy's cool analysis, but crit Kaisa is statistically better at every level DPS. So this is just wrong. Just wrong. Just wrong. I'll show why. And then, like, some other things that people are talking about. And then this guy's talking about 80 scalings. So stupidity, right? So I want to talk about. I want to put the debate to rest. Nash tried to rage bait me yesterday. Let's get deep into Kaisa builds, okay? Let's get deep into Kaisa builds. So let's go level 9 for now. First of all, let's start with comparing build paths. Yuntal, if you get BF sword, pretty solid, right? Pretty solid. Slingshot, not the best. Longsword, good. But BF sword, very nice. So we can start with the first thing. If get BF sword, good early, right? If not get BF sword, very bad early, right? If you get the slingshot, longsword, feels really bad, right? Feels terrible. So that's the first thing we can make. That's the first thing we can say. Then, second thing is when you complete the 2 items. Before you've stacked up Yuntal, I'd say Kraken Slayer is quite a bit better. And then once you've stacked up the Yuntal, you've gotten some crit going, you know, Yuntal starts to kind of bear its weight, right? 10 more AD, 5% less attack speed, also no movement speed. So on first item spike, similar, right? Similar, I'd say. Right? I'd say similar. Then second item. If you go Yuntal IE, okay. I'd say pretty strong 2 item spike. 2 item spike for on hit, decent. So I'd say 2 item spike favors Yuntal, favors the crit build, right? And then let's go Hurricane, because that's the build that every single pro player that I've seen has been doing on Kaisa. If we look at gold.gg, if we look at Kaisa, I've yet to see any other seal items, I think. So even though that one has less DPS, I think that's the one we'll be doing. You see Hurricane, 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 Hurricane. There's a PD. Oh yeah, a few PDs. There's a Nabori and a Hurricane. Right, let's do top leagues. Can I see builds here? Yeah, so we can see Hurricane, by far most popular, and then a few Navori PD games. Okay, so let's just max out the queue here. I have free boots, but it doesn't really matter. So we got a little dummy. And let's give him some resists. I think if I start auto-attacking him, I can add resist, right? Okay. So one of the things that is kind of annoying about Practice Tool, as far as I know, is you cannot give individual resists. I cannot give armor and MR separately, which you'd really want to do for this comparison, because let's say I'm 3 items, right? That'd be level 13 maybe, right? You can see my armor is 70, but my MR is 40. So ideally, I'd want to give this dummy around maybe 80 armor and 50 MR, but I can't actually do that. But that's okay. That just means that in this calculation, we need to think that the AP build is a little bit skewed weaker than it should be due to the fact that it has higher MR than it should have, okay? And then let's give it around a little bit more than 2k HP. We'll say this is like not, this is just not like an ADC, right? So he has 10 more armor than us, and he has 300 more HP, right? It's like a mid laner, bruiser, whatever it is. So, first things first. When is the crit build better? The biggest thing with the crit build is that you have more burst. But do you really? You have more burst in the initial skirmish, but we'll talk about why the AP build kind of has more burst in a different way. So, if I were to just do, we'll just do Q, W, and passive proc, and proc the passive, okay? And we'll see how much damage that is. So that is 15, 11 damage. I think maybe every single auto attack crit. It's fine. And then if we do the same passive proc with Yuntal, Rage Blade, and I leveled up. It's fine, I won't put a skill point in.
I like it here. I just might stay.
If we do the same thing now with the AP build, so we just do Q, W, and passive proc.
Prepare for what's next.
So it's one more auto attack, because, you know. So this is 1273. So this is a little bit less damage, right? This is around 200 less damage. Okay, good to know. Now, this was 3 autos, QW. Okay? A little bit more burst on the crit build. But then we have to remember one thing, and that is that the AP build, oftentimes, when you try to assassinate someone, you don't just run at them like this and use all your spells, right? A lot of the time with the AP build, how you play is that you first hit a W from range, then when that W is coming back up, okay, I need to have some points in the W though to really do this. So let's just go level 18. First you hit the W, and then you ulti W in. And you cannot do that with the crit build, right? So this is something that's a little bit more intangible, but it means that as an assassin, AP Kaisa has a ton of kind of hidden burst, because you can get 2 Ws off, and you can get that W proc like this, you know, a bunch of damage. That's 700 damage. But then let's do a DPS check. Let's do a DPS check at 3 items. 3 items DPS check. And I'll do 3 passive procs, W, Q, and use my E, okay? So I'll just start with E, Q, W, W, and I'll do until I've procced the passive 3 times. 1, 2, 3. DPS is 980. DPS is 980, right? Then we go Yuntal, IE, Hurricane. I haven't stacked up the Yuntal yet, so I need to stack that up. Stack it up on this guy real fast. Is there a way to stack it up? Stack items. Nice. Okay, good. Let's evolve these 2. And then wait for the Yuntal cooldown to be back up. And then we'll do 3 passive procs, Q, W, and E. Okay? So you can see there, by the 3rd passive proc, the Yuntal and my E attack speed was starting to run out, and the damage got a lot lower, right? If it was just 2 passive procs, the DPS would be really high. We can do 2 passive procs. You see, then it's really high. But once that Yuntal starts running out, the E attack speed starts to run out, the build starts to ramp down a lot. So it's the 3 passive procs that really the AP build starts to do a lot more. But the real value of the difference between the 2 builds starts to come after this point, in my opinion. Because now, if I go LDR here and we do the same thing, we'll do the 3 passive procs again. I forgot the E. I need to do it again. We'll wait at lethal tempo. $12.23, 4 items, crits. And then, if we then do it with AP, which one is more gold? It's this one, right? Yeah. And then let's do Void Staffs. That's usually my 3rd item. That also makes sense. One gets LDR, the other gets Void. This is when I think that the AP build should really start to outvalue. So let's see if I'm right. $13.21. So the difference is actually still pretty similar. It's higher for the AP build. And that is accounting for the fact that, like, Like, the thing is, in my opinion, the DPS for the crit build would have to be a lot higher to justify the fact that, one, you're getting Infinity Edge, which is more expensive than any of my items, and two, you're not getting W evolved. So while you need to auto-attack and Q people, I can fire shit from range, and I can do something like this. And one shot. And I think especially, this is when the real magic happens, is now if I get Rabadon, this is ultra late game, right? Because this would be boots here in my last slot. But if I now get Rabadon, and I now do the 3 passive brocs, $172, and if I do the AD build, an LDR.
I was spared for a reason.
$1,147. So now it's like 300 DPS difference. But it's still like, if you were to fight someone and you just start the fight, boom, 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 that's still a ton of damage. That's 3k damage right there. So how can we think about this? How can we think about this? Rather than just saying the crit build is bad, I'll put it this way. I think the crit build is good when you need to go AD and enemy is quite squishy, so you're playing more to burst people. Because the Q damage is very high with the crit build, because it's a high AD build, and because you're critting, you get, you know, on your first initial auto attacks, especially when you proc that Yuntal, you have a lot of attack speed with E plus Yuntal, 2.3, and you do a ton of damage. So if you need to go AD and enemy is squishy, I think crit build is really solid. But if you have the option of going AP, aka you only have 1 AP on your team, or 0, then you should always go the AP build in my opinion, because the DPS is better, while also having access to W poke plus W burst. So while the crit build has better burst, the AP build has very good burst as well, because, you know, you play, how you play the AP build is you hit the W, then you'd get the W refreshed, and then you'd ulti W in, right? That, like that, right? So both builds have their ups and downsides, but I also think the AP build just allows you to then, like, get a nice little Zhonya's in. You could go Zhonya's here, but it's a little bit more clunky. And the AP build just deals with tanks so much better, because most of your damage lies in your passive, which is hard for tanks to deal with. Thank you so much, Jeevan, for the 6 months. I think that's everything I need to say about the 2 builds, right? So then, when should you go the AD on it build? I think you should go the AD on it build if you're playing in a game that has quite a few tanks. That way, you can have a higher DPS to them, while also being tankier yourself. Because just Kraken Rageblade is going to do a lot of damage. And then you get BT Forth as well. And this way you're not really a bruiser, but you have a lot of survivability that you don't get with that crit build, right? Because I'm sitting now on 120 armor, 70 MR, I got the BT shield. It's pretty hard to kill me. So I'd say crit build against squishy champions when you need to go AD. On hit if enemy team is a little bit tankier, has some bruisers. And AP if you can go AP.